World's hardest spelling bee. You face a game show wheel with as many languages and writing systems as possible. Spin the wheel. Whatever comes up, you have to read a word and then write a word in that language and that script. For years I've been daydreaming about this bee, using it to compare alphabets in other scripts, and claim one's harder than another. I still use it to ask myself, from my calligraphy practice, which language script pairs would I cross my fingers for, and which ones have my hands trembling merely thinking they might come up on my turn. Admittedly, sometimes my daymares of this game spin out of control. Well, after keeping those thoughts to myself, today indulge me. I think the world's hardest spelling bee dramatizes a more nuanced model of writing than I first gave it credit for. Let's spin that wheel together once again and show you with examples from across my years of inexperience why it leaves me suspicious we don't yet have a coherent understanding or definition that embraces all of our many ways of writing. I need a summertime breather. Maybe you do too. We made it most of the way through my animated grammatical animals series when the audience requested a breather, and patrons asked for that breath to take in this beautifully unique writing system you see here. Preparing our path to that video, I reminisced and inked my way back across the diverse scripts I've studied, and found myself slipping for the umpteenth time into that dream of a writing bee. So what is a spelling bee? And what's this spelling bee? The history of the spelling bee begins... No, I won't do that to you. Though for those of us who crave details, meet me down in my sources document. 2 points I will share from researching spelling bees. One thing for those who grew up with them, another for those who did not. First group. You might not realize it, but packing a room full with students and having them compete to spell aloud trickier and trickier words started in and is tied to US English. So if you grew up doing this, know it's not a shared educational experience, but a peculiar ritual you participated in. Opinions around the world range from, "We don't do that here," to "Our spelling's phonemic," to even, "We have our own orthography games, thank you." And that's a whole other animation. Now, to the newcomers out there, and as a refresher to us olds, here's the base game, details spared. You line up with your classmates. Each of you takes a turn. You get a word. The word's pronounced. You have to repeat it, spell it out letter by letter, then repeat it again. Spell it wrong, you're knocked out. Do that in rounds of harder and harder words until one speller remains. From asking around, some adults to this day can't let go of that word that got them out. My dream of a nightmare writing bee wraps this kernel of a concept within a larger spectacle. It alters its inspiration in at least 2 basic ways. Appealing to language lovers the world over, the words aren't only drawn from English, nor any one language, but every known script language pair across the globe and across history. You randomly spin to choose the one you're relegated to. Once it comes up, the other twist. Not only do you hear or see signed a word, which you have to write, not spell aloud, but then you are silently presented with another word which you must read. That's the world's hardest spelling bee. Its point was to showcase the entire world of writing, to shatter the monolingual and monoscriptual barrier, and to compare scripts. Well, how does this stunt show off what drives one language script pair to be harder to write than another? That goes directly to how it subverts its inspiration. See, the original bee has a historical arc that doubles down on marks on the page definitions of writing. From spelling for reading's sake, to spelling for spelling's sake, to spelling for winning's sake. Perhaps that alone could make us stop and check our educational priorities, but perhaps 1, maybe even 2 beautiful creators out there already have something to say about that. My writing bee puts into practice a different definition of writing. Here, I'll try to depict that definition. Our game show starts narrowly focused on the symbols, limiting ourselves to scrutinizing marks on the page or the wheel. These are the familiar boundaries of academic definitions of writing. But then this game zooms out to include the roles of a writer writing and a reader reading, presumably also implying some surrounding studies of society and writing. For both roles, it tests what makes a script harder or easier using a simple mapping between symbols and phonemes. This function maps phonemes to glyphs and glyphs to phonemes as a way to determine a script's consistency for writers and readers. Many glyphs mapping to one linguistic unit is hard on the writer. One glyph mapping to many linguistic units is hard on the reader. One-to-one mapping is easy on both roles. Many-to-many is hard on both. So when I put you in the hot seat and test you on both roles back-to-back, the result claims to detect opaque mapping, historical spelling, any inconsistencies that make a script challenging. So that's how I think this wheel worked. Now how it doesn't. Here, take these examples I've been handwriting. From my rough calligraphy practice, these are ones that give me pause when, late at night, the writing bee pops into my mind. I'll share the slower, messier thinking while inking with patrons. Here I'll summarize so we can keep the pen flowing. Please don't be impressed, I dabble to a fault. Wiser people have devoted their hands to each script, and they've inspired me. Links to them below. In our worldwide writing bee, what kinds of roles have writers and readers played? Well, they've negotiated and adjusted a familiar system that covers an enormous diversity of languages and even contradictory conventions. One 20th century writer innovated this handcrafted alphabet to represent a language family and its emerging Koine. For millennia, readers and writers have maintained this old script through diacritics and sound mergers, going on to inspire others who also contributed several of their own much older signs. They have argued that your horizon should face the left way in these two scripts, that you're using too many vowels, and you're missing out on rules about shapes, connections, and gaps in your cursive. But they differ in wanting similarly streamlined letters with more dots versus shapelier letters with fewer. They have read main letters as inherent simple syllables, which they then modify on all sides, and can turn into ornate syllables with complex ligatures. They've passed that same script's relatives along across mainland and islands to fit the cultures and syllables of languages from very different mountain-spanning and water-spanning families. They have performed a linguistic feat, featuring features graphically in syllable blocks to record their sounds simply, which counterbalances how deeply their grammar depends on difficult politeness levels. They have learned how to intertwine three redundant systems simultaneously in sentences that somehow without spaces clearly separate words, affixes, meaning, and syntax. Among them has been a dancer who created a new way of writing based on signing instead of speaking, pushing readers to think across modalities and relate symbols to shapes moving through space. And they have perpetuated a famously long-lived reservoir of signs, routinely misconstrued from outside, that writers piece together at least as much for their sounds as their meaning, and which generations of readers would find burdensome to memorize, but immediate and compact once kept in the heart. So, to me, above all, a few scripts stand out for their conspicuous absence from my wheel. The more I learn, the more they challenge it and point to where we're headed. Maya scribes have access to simple syllables, logograms, and a convention that lets consonant-vowel signs, unaltered, represent closed syllables with complex vowels. In these drawings, I'm playing with picturing how the script comes with an agreement that when you close one syllable, you just use another regular syllable, but in a pattern that lets you spell both the final consonant and the type of vowel before it. Once you're used to it, this doesn't feel harder than, like, Latin ALMG script. Words squeeze into uniform blocks. Creativity comes in the form of choosing, resizing, rotating, combining elements within those blocks. Watch how it comes together. I can merge two syllable signs plus stick on a cropped passive suffix in one word block. and then in the next block write a stone logogram, reinforced by a syllable pronunciation hint beneath it. For an ancient idiom, the stone was planted, meaning the stela was raised. Back to a word I've loved here before. Let's stack yichnal again in 3D. When I pull it apart, the components alone are yi, chi, nal, la. And there are flexibly many more ways to write that word, all correct, even if some require creative thinking. In context, Maya writers and readers rely on, returning to this paper again, a lot of iconic and linguistic hybridity. Like in the oldest extant codex, the Scribe, the Achtzib, repeats this sign below an image of chak to write the word road, and at the same time draws a road. Or a stela maker arranges text in this woven mat pattern to add a message of royalty to the lineage history the glyph blocks recount. It's sometimes likened to manga since meanings emerge from a scenic word-image interplay. The standard teaching goes that writing progressed in stages from picto to logo to phono. Well, what about writers who could do all those at once? Head west, revisit a couple of videos, and ask the Nawa. When a writer writes this sign, tlantli, meaning teeth, a reader can read it with the full noun suffix or can drop its suffix and pronounce tlan or tla or short tla, even la. You can also stretch it out to a repetitive tla-tlan. This reducing, expanding isn't arbitrary, it's formulaic, and here's the formula. Writers don't distinguish short and long vowels, which is why the stem quau, eagle, with a long vowel, can write the quau, trees that make up the first syllable in Guatemala. Keep on your toes, even color and size are meaningful. Patrons, I know I animated a short show and tell for you before, but to sum up, read painted colors as the color word. Sometimes it's a pun, like in this date, the color turquoise means the word year, so they sound alike. Similarly with dimensions, you read the size. A big or great day is a month, a ritual calendar 20-day month. Writers and readers engage in extensive punning and give and take. Here a wache tree grows out of a nose, plainly wash and yaka. But an added layer is that the face punnily crosses morpheme boundaries to ensure we read the place name Washyakak, Oaxaca. Now bring in a whole sheet. This give-and-take text tells us what named people say to each other about other labeled elements on the page. There's a script-like and at the same time animated-like quality to this way of writing. It often links to exact wordings, it's hardly anything goes. Speaking of the name Oaxaca, that's where the Mixtec or Usabi pictorials come from. They get to the heart of what's both excited and troubled me about my writing bee built atop a definition built atop people taking two roles. Writers play with puns, notably with changes in tone, and readers follow a clear pattern, reading scenes in a predefined outlined order. Still, they're missing anything linguistically segmental. More than its parts, the script works, according to one author, more schematically. I think that's worth more animated minutes, a journey where codices from Mexico make us second-guess our fundamental takes on writing, the roles of readers and writers, and the people who have inhabited those roles. Next time. I sure hope you've enjoyed my trip back to my writing systems bee and my script study musings. Thank you, patrons, for supporting my animations and for choosing this summertime breather before I finish my last two grammatical animals. And to everyone, stick around and subscribe for more about our world full of languages, writing systems, and people.